I broke the $10 computer. I know after the overclocking incident, I said you wouldn't be seeing this thing anymore. I'm not entirely convinced that it's broken though. I mean, I took out the Core i7-860 that I was overclocking, because that's what I killed, right? And yeah, I put in the old Core i3 and the computer posts to the BIOS, but refuses to load any operating system. Not Windows, not Linux, nothing. But something tells me it's not dead. I mean, it loads the BIOS now. I want to see if I can revive this thing, or at least figure out exactly what part of it is broken. Taking apart the overclocking setup and reverting this thing back to its original configuration has ruled out most of the possible problems. It cannot possibly be the CPU or power supply, because these are different now. Cannot be storage or software. I tried other options for those. It also cannot be the graphics card, because it's not in there anymore. The only possible things that could have gone wrong here: the motherboard or the RAM. I think it's time to test some hardware and see if I can get an operating system to load. Hello, 4GB stick of HyperX Fury. I have no idea where this came from. Test subject for this one, might as well use a Dell Optiplex. They're plentiful. Just tear this thing down. Take out our known working RAM. That's good stuff right there. That's 16 gigs. And in with the HyperX Fury. Same SSD I was doing the overclocking with. We can make sure that operating system works at the same time. Turn this on. I don't want this to work. If this works, that means the RAM is fine and the motherboard's probably dead. Oh, why is this working? I didn't want this to work. And this has not had a single hiccup running Cinebench R15. This test is gonna finish. Record score for one of these Optiplexes too, of course. We went from 720 on my last time I tested this, whenever that was. We're up to 760. I don't even know how we're beating a Core i7-6700 now, a newer CPU that's also a Core i7. Whatever, I'm just gonna put different RAM into the $10 computer. Maybe it's still RAM. I really want it to be RAM. I could try changing the slot that the RAM is in. It's possible that one of the slots is dead, or like the lanes on the motherboard for the CPU to that specific RAM slot. Maybe that's cooked? Honestly, probably not. I just want to find any reason that that thing can still work. All right, $10 computer time. Imagine I put the same RAM back into the same exact slot and it just works totally fine. Same exact RAM stick, same RAM slot. I didn't put the SSD in, I should probably do that. But yeah, it does this. It boots to the BIOS. It's always been able to do this. With the Core i3, it doesn't do that with the Core i7. SSD is plugged in, does this thing boot? There's the BIOS, and there's Windows for a quarter second. That's always what it does. It gets the logo and then dies. It also boot loops. It'll keep retrying, going back to the BIOS, going back to Windows, and then, oh, it actually blue screen this time. Fault in non-paged area. It doesn't usually do that. Usually it just dies. Same RAM stick, different slot this time. BIOS, then Windows, then dead. Exactly the same behavior. It's doing it again. Different RAM module this time. I really want this to work. That's installed. Fans are spinning. I feel like it crashed sooner than this before. Is this actually doing something? In case this works, give me a keyboard. That's not Windows, but I feel like it's closer to Windows. Can we restart? If this actually boots, I gotta put the Core i7 back. It booted. I was saying, if this boots, I gotta put the Core i7 back in that I thought was fried and see if this one works. But quickly, can I use this? No AMD graphics drivers installed, or the AMD driver is not functioning properly. There's no AMD graphics card in this computer. Cinebench? Actually, what does Task Manager say about this? Core i3 530, 3 GHz, 2 GB of DDR at 1333 MHz. CPU test? No issues there at all. We got exactly the same score as last time I tested the Core i3. Dual channel memory. I want to put in another RAM stick. See if it boots. RAM stick gets a friend. Did the computer not turn off? I pressed the power button and this was here instantly. Did I just put RAM in this thing while it was running? I don't know why I'm filming the screen. I'm recording it. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I just put RAM in this thing without turning it off. Let's hit this with a restart. Still only 2 GB showing up, so maybe that RAM slot is dead? Maybe I need to turn it off more. Maybe a restart wasn't enough. I'm gonna turn it off, actually turn the power supply off. I'm gonna completely swap these things. I'm gonna take the one that was here and put it here. And I'll put this one in the other side. So if this boots again with only 2 gigs of RAM, I think that means the RAM slot's dead. Now it boots with 4 gigs of RAM. I want to load it up. I'm gonna put 16 gigs, fill up all 4 slots. If that boots, I'm putting the Core i7 back in. I want to know if the CPU is dead or not, or if it works. Maybe it's fine. Maybe the whole time I just killed a RAM stick by messing with voltages too much. Let's get more RAM. That is now 16 gigabytes of DDR3 in the computer, and it's kind of not booting anymore. Explain to me how that makes sense. So what if I use these RAM modules but don't put in the 2 slots that I didn't have before? It still doesn't boot. What is going on with this computer? Is this RAM dead too? This was out of one of the optiplexes. This stuff works, or it did work. I'm officially now even more confused. I went to go put my good kit of 16 gigs of RAM back in the Dell Optiplex that it came from, and this doesn't turn on anymore. It's dead. The light just blinks orange. So this is killing RAM sticks, but selectively? The RAM stick that was in it during the overclocking boots in this computer, but not in itself. I did a lot more testing with a lot more different RAM configurations. Here's what I figured out. The HyperX stick that was in this computer during the overclocking video, it does not ever boot in this computer anymore, but it does boot in other computers. I have no way of explaining how that happened, but that's what happens. These 2 sticks of RAM are completely dead. They don't boot in this computer. They don't boot in the optiplexes. They're just broken. I have no explanation for this other than the $10 computer motherboard killed them somehow. And then the $10 computer, it's not dead. It's booted up. It's running right now. And I found a configuration of 12 gigs of RAM that boots in this thing and works. That 12 gigs is across 2 4 gig sticks and 2 2 gig sticks. It boots and works. But what about our Core i7? Is the CPU broken? I think we have to test it. Let's put it back in this thing. There's our trusty Core i3. Never let me down. It's just a really bad CPU. It's not very fast. Core i7 time. Okay, it's not doing anything currently, but I don't remember if this has integrated graphics. Let me look it up. No, the Intel Core i7-860 does not have integrated graphics. Okay, we need a GPU. Trusty GTX 1060 is going back in. GPU is installed, got my 6-pin plugged in. Time for test number 2. Yeah, that's kind of what I expected. The fans spin, but there's no signs of life. Absolutely nothing happens other than that. This CPU's cooked. It doesn't work. So that Core i7 must have died during the overclocking and partially took this RAM stick with it because it doesn't work in here, but it works in other stuff. And then I can't explain why this RAM died. That's just a mystery, but yeah, CPU's broken. I guess this is going back to the Core i3 PC. CPU, Core i7, cooked, done. Crazy idea. Can we overclock the Core i3? I want to overclock the Core i3 now. I don't want to break this computer. I'm not going to push it that hard, not going to raise voltages or anything. Let's just see if we can get like 3.2 gigahertz. I'm going to attempt to boot this 22 ratio 144 base clock for 3,168 megahertz. Leaving everything else automatic, all voltages automatic and everything. Let's just see if this boots. That right there is a measurable performance improvement. Old score 210, we're up to 224 points. Very slightly better. Let's push it more. Base clock 155. Perhaps it can do 3.4 gigahertz. I really thought that 3.4 would blue screen. Why does this chip overclock better than the i7? That run completed at 244 points, which is 1.16 the speed of the stock clocks. We're actually not doing that bad here. Let's turn it up. I did get a blue screen, had to back it off a little bit, then got a Cinebench crash, backs it off a little bit more, and I got a completed score at just barely below 3.6 gigahertz. 257 points. That is 1.22 times the stock clocks without touching the voltages at all. And since I didn't touch the voltages, temperatures are fine. It hit about 60 degrees during the test, but that's on an Intel stock cooler. Like, that's impressive. There's Task Manager showing my seemingly somewhat stable 3.58 gigahertz, which I'm very impressed with because when I did the i7 overclocking, that thing only ever actually made it to like 3.7. Yeah, there's the score it made, just slightly below 3.7 gigahertz. Of course, that is a Core i7. It's got double the core count, so that score is still 2.14 times the amount I got on here. I'm still impressed with this i3. It's doing pretty good in there. Does this overclock contribute to any more real-world performance? BeamNG drive time. I stuck the GTX 1060 back in there, we're booted up, I just need some drivers, and we'll get in game. I did have one more blue screen, so I dropped the frequency ever so slightly, running 3.56 gigahertz here in Task Manager, and running BeamNG Drive. I'm going to have to test this again without the overclock to see how much of a difference it's actually making. Definitely playable in the current state right now. We're getting above 60 FPS driving around the highway here. If I just sit at the spawn location here, this settles in at 36 FPS. So let's turn off the overclock and see if it's different. I've got everything in the BIOS set back to automatic, so stock clock speeds, exactly how this would run if I never touched it. Even without looking at the FPS, I think I can tell that this is running worse. There's the frame rate counter, let's respawn. Is that gonna stabilize? Because that is a lot worse. It's been a little bit now, settled in 30, 31 FPS. Measurably worse, so that overclock clearly did something. And with that, that's gonna be it for this episode. The $10 computer is alive, it's been resurrected. And the Core i3 apparently overclocks decently. I don't know why some of my RAM sticks are just dead now. That's just something that happened. And the Core i7, well, we know why this died, but we know that it is definitely dead now. Thanks for watching and get subscribed for next week's video. I think I might turn this into a server. Hit like if you want to see that. Thanks for watching. I think I already said that. Oh no.